Welcome to the finals of the Kentucky High School Mock Trial Tournament. Is everyone ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Commonwealth, the prosecution.
Yes, Your Honor.
Saying the Commonwealth. Prosecution is ready to proceed. How about the defense? Ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Would you like us to distribute rosters at this time?
Sure.
May I approach the bench?
Yes.
May I approach the bench?
And the jurors are ready to proceed as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. With that, then, we'll first have openings from the prosecution.
Would you like us to do introductions, Your Honor?
That's fine.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Anna Claire West, and I, along with my co-counsel, Lauren Hudson,
Good morning, Your Honor.
and William Schneider,
Good morning, Your Honor.
will be representing the prosecution in today's case. Our witnesses today are
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sydney Skaggs, and I'll be portraying the role of Avery Coltash in today's case.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Sydney Jones, and I will be portraying the role of Dr. Morgan McCabe in today's case.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Davis West, and I'll be portraying the role of Dr. Carter.
Your Honor, we also have a few pretrial matters we'd like to address. Do we have the freedom to move about the well with respect to the witness stand and the bench?
Yes.
And would you like us to state the basis of our objections immediately or wait until called upon by yourself?
Immediately.
And would you like us to formally tender expert witnesses or simply lay that foundation?
Not necessary.
Yes, Your Honor. And I'd like to read stipulation number 6 for the court. Harper Finch died on September 15th, 2014, when she fell from the Pei-Fong Arch at Utopia University. The cause of her death was the fall from a height greater than 15 feet, which broke her neck and collapsed a portion of her skull. With that, prosecution is ready to proceed.
Defense wish to make an introduction?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. I'm Kyle McLaughlin, and with my co-counsel, we represent the defendant in this case, Grayson Zane. And at this time, we would also like to do our introductions. I'm Kyle McLaughlin, and I'll be conducting the direct examination of the defendant, Grayson Zane, as well as the cross-examination of Avery Coltash with co-counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Bryce Dexter, and I will be giving today's opening statements, as well as the direct examination of Dr. Shelby Grody and the cross-examination of Dr. Morgan McCabe with co-counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury. My name is Nathan Carroll, and today I'll be conducting the direct examination of Logan Kaufman and the cross-examination of Dr. Carter Gooding, along with giving today's closing arguments. Our witnesses will now introduce themselves in the order of which they will be called.
Good morning, Your Honor, and members of the jury. My name is Eli Clapper, and I'm Grayson Zane.
Good morning, Your Honor. Members of the jury, my name is Kendall McLeod, and I am Logan Kaufman.
Good morning, Your Honor. Members of the jury, my name is Carson Brown, and I am Dr. Shelby Grody.
All right. Anything further before we have opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
We would also like to make the court aware of case law Wittenhouse v. State. This case law states that the burden of proof applies to each and every element of the offense alleged, and this burden is solely on the state and never rests on the defendant. Your Honor, at this time, we would also like to ask that when entering evidence, would you prefer that we give a courtesy copy to Your Honor as well as the jury?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, the defense is ready to proceed.
Prosecution ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed with your opening.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Desperate acts lead to deadly consequences. On September 15th, 2014, Harper Finch, an 18-year-old freshman, fell 30 feet headfirst to her death from the top of a wooden arch structure known as the Pei-Fong. The evidence in today's case will show that this fall was no accident. The evidence in today's case will show that this fall was a desperate act that led to a deadly consequence. But our story doesn't begin on September 15th, 2014. No, our story begins a couple months earlier when Harper Finch first enrolled as a freshman at Utopia University. When she was tapped to be a member of the prestigious Zeta Iota Pi Honor Society, she was thrilled until she found out that the pledge master and defendant, Grayson Zane, was leading a widespread grading scandal. When Harper confronted the defendant about this issue, the defendant went ballistic. The defendant then began abusing his power as pledge master and began hazing and harassing Harper Finch. This harassment included utilizing a variety of insects from the defendant's own entomology lab. The evidence in today's case will show that Harper Finch was so close to uncovering this grading scandal. If the scandal were to be uncovered, the defendant would lose everything. The defendant would be expelled. The defendant's future plans of going to graduate school and becoming an entomologist would be ruined. The only way that the defendant could save himself and his future would be to silence Harper Finch forever. Grayson Zane has been charged with murder in the first degree in today's case, and we, as the prosecution, hold the burden of proof. We hold the burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt 3 of the elements. First, that Harper Finch is dead. This fact has been stipulated by both parties in today's case. Second, that the defendant intended to kill Harper Finch. And third, that the defendant's actions directly led to the death of Harper Finch. We, as the prosecution, welcome this burden. We will prove this burden through a mixture of expert testimony, lay testimony, and exhibits in today's case. The evidence in today's case will show that Grayson Zane is guilty of murder in the first degree because he purposely placed termites on the arch of the payphone with the intention to weaken the structure. Then, as part of a pledging activity, he forced Harper Finch to climb the payphone, knowing that it had been weakened by the termites. Harper Finch then fell 30 feet, headfirst, to her death. To prove the elements in today's case, we will call 3 witnesses. First, we will call Miss Avery Coltash. Avery was a dear friend and a fellow pledge of Harper's. Avery was also an eyewitness as to the defendant's reaction when Harper confronted the defendant about the grading scandal. Avery will testify that the defendant was furious and yelled at Harper to get out of the Honor Society house. Avery will then confirm the defendant's subsequent hazing and harassment of Harper Finch, which culminated in her death when the termites collapsed the structure of the payphone. Second, we will call Dr. Morgan McCabe to the stand, a former professor at Utopia University. Dr. Morgan McCabe will confirm how the defendant was attempting to intimidate Harper Finch into silence. Dr. Morgan McCabe will tell how she pled with the defendant, begged him to stop the hazing because the cost of a human life is not worth a lost reputation. Dr. Morgan McCabe will confirm how the defendant was desperate to avoid the repercussions of being caught in a widespread grading scandal. Lastly, we will call Dr. Carter Gooding to the stand, an expert in the field of forensics entomology. Dr. Carter Gooding will confirm that it was in fact the termites that collapsed the payphone structure. Dr. Carter Gooding will also discuss that the genetic tests of the termites found at the payphone exactly match the genetic tests of the termites in the defendant's own entomology lab. Members of the jury, the evidence in this case today will show that the defendant was desperate, and desperate acts lead to deadly consequences. And that is why at the close of this trial, my co-counsel, Miss Anna Claire West, will come before you and ask that you return a verdict of guilty of murder in the first degree, as is the only verdict that the facts compel, the law requires, and justice demands. Thank you.
For the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. The prosecution just stood up here and told you a story about desperation, which was full of half-truths, in order to make Grayson Zane out to be a villain here today. But the truth is, members of the jury, there is no villain. There is no one responsible for the death of Harper Finch. Harper's death was a horrible tragedy and nothing more. In order to make you believe that Grayson killed Harper Finch, the prosecution must paint him as a cold-hearted murderer. But we ask you to look at the facts of today's case and ask yourself, what seems more plausible? That a 146-year-old wooden gate collapsed due to natural wear and tear, or that an undergraduate student who wasn't even good at chemistry managed to synthesize a pheromone that had never been created before, and then used it to infest a gate with termites to cause it to collapse. Prosecution's theory reminds me of an old saying. If you hear hoofbeats in the woods, think horse, not zebra. They want you to think zebra, an unlikely and unproven theory. We want you to think you hear a horse, the likely and common sense answer to today's question. In order to prove to you that Grayson Zane is not responsible for this horrible tragedy, we will call 3 witnesses. First, you will hear from Grayson Zane himself. Grayson was the pledge master of ZIP in the 2014-2015 academic year. Grayson will tell you about the grading scandal he was sucked into by older, experienced ZIP members when he arrived at Utopia University. He will also tell you that he tried to make pledging with ZIP an enjoyable experience, and despite the claims of the prosecution, had no reason to kill Harper Finch. Next, you will hear from Logan Kaufman. Logan Kaufman was a pledge in ZIP in the 2014-2015 academic year. Logan witnessed firsthand Harper's competitive nature and will give us several examples of it. Logan also witnessed Harper's strong contempt for ZIP leadership, about the innumerable times she protested Grayson Zane's leadership as president of the Honor Society. We will also hear about Harper's final moments, about how she was warned multiple times not to take any unnecessary risks by not only Logan Kaufman, but by Grayson Zane himself. And finally, you will hear from Dr. Shelby Grody, an expert in forensic entomology with over 50 years of experience in his field. He will tell you that after studying this case, he concluded that the only likely reasonable explanation for the collapse of the payphone gate, despite its age, was that the termites which damaged the gate had been living there since the gate was erected. He will also tell you that the cold winter of the 2013 and 2014 in Utopia allowed for the gate to become damaged enough that the termites could come out of hibernation and do what they do best, eat. Dr. Grody will also tell you that the damage found on the gate is completely inconsistent with the termites having only been there for 1 week. The state will also provide you 3 witnesses today. Who will they be? One will be an obscure forensic entomologist with an unfounded theory about a pheromone. They want you to believe that an undergrad student could do something that no expert has successfully ever done before. They will also bring you a close friend of Harper, who only stoked Harper's competitive fire and also had it out for Grayson Zane. And they will also bring you a disgraced professor whose conduct resulted in them working as a professor at a major university, working at a Wally World Garden Center. Who do they blame for this? None other than Grayson Zane. 2 people biased against Grayson from the start, and 1 being paid to testify here today. That is what the state is building their case on. Now, as a defense, we do not have the burden of proof in today's trial. That is the responsibility of the prosecution, and it is a responsibility that they will fail to fulfill. They must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Grayson Zane killed Harper Finch. If you have 1 ounce of uncertainty at the conclusion of today's trial, you must find Grayson Zane not guilty. Today, you are in the woods. When you hear hoofbeats in this courtroom, think horse, not zebra. Think logically today, members of the jury, and remember that common sense often sheds light on what jumping to conclusions can leave unseen. Thank you.
Is the prosecution ready with their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, prosecution calls Miss Avery Coltash to the stand.
Is the witness sworn? You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself to the judge and to the jury.
Good morning. My name is Avery Coltash.
How old are you, Miss Coltash?
I'm 19 years old.
Are you currently enrolled as a freshman at Utopia University?
At the beginning of the school year, I was enrolled at Utopia, but after everything that happened to Harper, I couldn't stomach going back to Utopia, let alone ZIP.
Miss Coltash, what happened to Harper?
Harper was killed during one of our requiring pledge activities under the Pledge Master.
Can you tell us a little bit more about ZIP?
ZIP was an honor society at Utopia. It stands for Zeta Iota Pi.
And what is the process of being initiated into the ZIP community like?
Well, you can't rush like a normal fraternity or sorority. You have to be asked or tapped by the Pledge Master.
And were you tapped?
I was, along with Logan Kaufman and Harper Finch.
What are some of the requirements that a pledge must complete before becoming a full member?
First, we have to sign a pledge promise. We had to promise to strictly obey whatever our pledge master told us to do without question or hesitation. And then we had to do 4 feats of fortitude, which are these pledging challenges that we had to complete to the pledge master's satisfaction.
You mentioned the pledge master. Who was the pledge master during your pledge period?
Grayson Zane.
Do you see Grayson Zane here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Could you please identify Grayson Zane by an article of clothing?
Grayson's wearing a green striped tie.
Your Honor, let the record reflect a court identification of Grayson Zane has been made.
It will.
Yes, Your Honor. Earlier you mentioned you had to compete in feats of fortitude. What exactly is a feat of fortitude?
Well, Grayson had to come up with these challenges that we had to do, and we had to do it completely to Grayson's satisfaction.
Does the pledge master, Grayson Zane, have complete control over the pledges during the pledge period?
In accordance with our pledge promise that we had to sign, it gave Grayson complete control over us and the feats of fortitude.
During the pledge period, were you able to observe the interactions between the defendant, Grayson Zane, and the victim, Harper Finch?
As a pledge, we moved into the zip house, me and Harper did, along with Grayson, and I was there for all of the horrible things that he did to her.
What was the defendant's behavior like during the pledge period?
After Harper uncovered a grading scandal that Grayson was orchestrating, Grayson became extremely aggressive and even started to haze Harper to keep it under control.
Objection, Your Honor. First, to the grading scandal, for which there's been no foundation laid to have been existing, and second, to the hazing.
Come forward.
May I approach?
Yes. Argument?
Your Honor, there's been no foundation laid that there was ever a grading scandal going on. If counsel would like to lay that foundation, that's fine with us. Also, Grayson Zane did plead guilty to hazing, but it's his contention and ours as well that he did not commit that crime.
Well, as to the foundation, I think he's correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
As to the hazing, if he pled guilty, that's good.
Yes,
Your
sir.
Honor, may I lay foundation with our next testimony?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And Ms. Koltash, what was this paper that you found?
After one of our feats of fortitude, Grayson made Harper and I clean up the Zip House archives. Harper found a paper that had been written by Grayson. It had an A- on it, but it looks like it was written by a 4th grader.
Objection, Your Honor. This witness is testifying to facts, not in evidence.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor. Please continue, Ms. Koltash.
Like I said, Harper found a paper, and it looked like it'd been written by a 4th grader, if that, but it had an A- on it. We thought it may have been a joke.
What did you do about this paper?
We took it to Grayson the next morning.
And how did the defendant respond?
Grayson got extremely defensive and aggressive. He ripped the paper out of Harper's hands, yelled at us that he would zip us up if we were to tell anyone, and then screamed to get out of the Zip House.
Afterwards, did anything unusual happen to you or to Harper?
Just a few days later, Harper woke up covered in these painful bedbug bites.
Did you ever discuss these bedbugs with anybody?
I talked with Harper about it, and being that Grayson worked on the entomology lab in campus, and Harper had done majority of the talking during the confrontation about the grading scandal, we thought that Grayson was trying to haze Harper to get her to stay quiet about the whole thing.
And did you ever talk to the defendant about this hazing?
Harper did confront Grayson, and I was there with her. Grayson said that bedbugs were nothing. Maggots, on the other hand, I don't know a lot about bugs, but maggots eat the flesh off of dead bodies.
Objection, Your Honor. This statement's more prejudicial than probative. The fact that maggots eat the flesh off of dead bodies adds nothing to the facts of this case.
That's the standards of that.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Were you finished, Ms. Koltash?
No. Grayson said that bedbugs were nothing. Maggots, on the other hand, I was extremely creeped out.
Afterwards, did you notice any other times in which the defendant put the health and safety of Harper Finch at risk?
Yes, during our 3rd feat of fortitude.
What did this 3rd feat entail?
Well, originally, we all had to run half of a 5K, eat 6 donuts, and then finish the race, but even though Harper was a diabetic, Grayson made Harper eat 6 more donuts than everyone else.
Was Harper able to finish the race?
No. After eating the donuts, she threw them up, and she almost fainted.
What happened after that?
We had to rush her to the hospital.
Did you go to the hospital with Harper?
Yes, Grayson came along as well.
Did you ever discuss this incident with the defendant?
I did. I thought it was extremely desperate of Grayson to try to hurt Harper to keep her quiet about the grading scandal.
And how did the defendant respond?
Grayson said that maybe Harper wouldn't act like such a cockroach from now on. And then he said that it was her last warning. And if I wasn't careful, I was going to be on his list too.
Did you ever discuss this confrontation with anybody else?
I told Harper about Grayson's threats.
And what did Harper do?
Harper wasn't going to let some bully push us around, so she emailed Grayson and she CC'd me on the email so I'd get a copy.
Would you recognize a copy of this if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, at this time, let the record reflect, I'm showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 6.
Which one will you be showing notice?
At the top. May I approach the bench for a courtesy copy?
Yes.
May I approach the witness? Ms. Goldash, what is this?
This is a copy of the email that Harper sent to Grayson and Grayson's response to Harper.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time, prosecution moves to the introduction of Exhibit 6 into evidence.
Your Honor, we do object to this. While we understand that Grayson Zane's statements are admissible under the party opponent exception, Harper Finch's statements are inadmissible hearsay, and we
Yes.
move that they be redacted from this.
May I respond, Your Honor? Under Rule 804-6B, Harper Finch, the declarant in this case, is unavailable, and it is the prosecution's theory that the defendant, Grayson Zane, directly caused the inavailability of Harper Finch.
I'll overrule the objection. Be
Yes,
admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Goldash, can you please summarize what Harper Finch said to the defendant?
Harper said that she really wanted to be a member of ZIP, but Grayson was putting her health in danger, that he knew she was a diabetic. And then she threatened that if Grayson didn't cut out the hazing, she was going to expose the ZIP grading scandal.
And how did the defendant respond to this email?
In Grayson's own words, he said, "Harper, my dear Harper, you still have so much to learn. You didn't die, so you passed. This time. Watch where you step when you follow my lead."
Afterwards, did the defendant have you participate in any other pledging activities?
Yes, we had to complete one final feat of fortitude.
What did this final feat of fortitude entail?
Grayson wanted us to go around campus and take pictures of us planking. It's where you lie down like a piece of wood, or a corpse, as Grayson put it. But we did pandaing instead at the specific locations that Grayson had chosen for us.
You mentioned pandaing. What exactly is pandaing?
Well, pandas like to climb up on trees and have their arms and legs dangle off the side. We wanted to try to mimic it to raise money for the Utopia Zoo.
Where did the three of you have to panda?
Grayson ordered me to panda at the student union, Logan the football field, and Harper specifically had to panda at the payphone in the UU Botanical Gardens.
Ms. Goldash, what is the payphone?
It's this large, old wooden structure that we got from a sister campus in China years ago, centuries ago.
Ms. Goldash, I would like to discuss the incidents on the day of September 15th, 2014. If at any point this becomes too difficult, just let me know. How did this day begin?
Well, Grayson didn't come with us to do our feat, but he made sure to tell us that it was our last feat, so we had to do it and make it the best. So we all went out together as pledges to do the feat together. First, we went to the student union, where I pandaed on an 8-foot wall. And then we went to the football field for Logan. And she climbed up the goalpost. I didn't think it was safe, but we had to do everything to Grayson's satisfaction. And that's when we went to the payphone for Harper.
What happened once you arrived at the payphone?
I saw it and I immediately thought it was too dangerous. I didn't understand why Grayson would want her to climb something that wasn't safe.
But did Harper climb?
Yes, we had to. In accordance with the pledge promise, we had to do everything Grayson told us to his satisfaction.
And what happens once she arrived at the top?
The higher and higher that she started to climb, it started to creak uncontrollably. And when she got to the top, the plank that was under her snapped. And she screamed, "What are all these bugs?"
And how high was she at this point?
She had to have been at least 25 feet in the air.
What happened after the plank snapped?
After it snapped, She screamed. I can still hear it echoing in my head, and she fell head first to her death.
Thank you, Ms. Coltash. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Coltash, when you got to Utopia University, you were selected to be in ZIP on the first day of classes, is that right?
I was tapped to be a part of the Honor Society.
And you were thrilled initially with this opportunity, weren't you?
I was. It did seem to propose very many opportunities for me, like community service.
However, you quickly became disenchanted with the leadership that you saw, correct?
After the way that Grayson was acting towards Harper, I didn't really want to be a part of ZIP.
You didn't like the special treatment that you said you saw going on between Grayson and Logan.
Well, it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like it, but I couldn't believe that ZIP wasn't abiding by its ideals. It absolutely baffled me.
Now, Logan was a legacy, wasn't she?
Yes, she was.
And this means that you believe, in part, that Logan was accepted into ZIP because of an older sibling.
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculation.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, I do believe that's how the legacy policy works.
And you also stated that Logan didn't have the same academic drive or pursuit that you and Harper did, correct?
It didn't seem that way, but it was the legacy policy. It was the way of the world, so I just got over it.
But this was because Logan had a better room in the Zip house, correct?
I think Logan did get first choice of rooms.
And Logan didn't have to bring Grayson breakfast in the morning, did she?
No. Grayson treated Harper and I as personal slaves as opposed to Logan.
Now, the longer you were in Zip, you came to know that Grayson was also a legacy, going back several generations, right?
I don't know how true that was. Logan did mention that to me.
And you also learned that Grayson's family had donated a considerable amount of money to the organization over the years.
Again, that's something that Logan told me. I'm not sure how true it is.
And you stated that this made you dislike Grayson even more, correct?
Well, again, I was upset. I thought that Zip held itself to a higher standard, but allowing Grayson in, apparently not.
Now, after the second feat of fortitude, Grayson had you and Harper clean the Zip house, right?
Yes, we had to clean up after a dance video.
And while you were cleaning, you found Grayson's milkweed paper, right?
Well, I didn't find it. Harper did.
You and Harper found it, though, correct?
Harper found it, and she showed it to me.
And when you all found it, you brought it to Grayson to confront him about it, right?
I did. We thought it may have been a joke, so we were laughing about it, but that's when Grayson got extremely aggressive and yelled at us and threatened to zip us up
No,
if we were
Ms.
to tell
Coltish.
anyone.
Objection, Your Honor. I ask that opposing counsel allow my witness finish.
Allow her to answer.
Yes, Your Honor.
Like I said, after we were joking about it with Grayson, he got extremely defensive, desperate even, ripped the paper out of Harper's hands and then screamed at us, threatening us even.
Now, Ms. Coltesh, when Harper had bed bugs, you also confronted Grayson, right?
Yes, we did think that Grayson was trying to haze Harper into keeping her quiet about the grading scandal since she'd done most of the talking.
Now, this Crazy Cream 5K, this was something that every pledge was required to complete in order to remain in ZIP, right?
Yes, the original idea, everyone had to eat the 6 donuts and then run the race, but Grayson made Harper eat extra donuts to make her stay in ZIP.
Now, for this fourth feat of fortitude, the plan was for all the pledges to panda somewhere on campus, right?
Yes,
You
Grayson,
had to panda on a wooden wall, correct?
a wall in the student union. Students like to hang posters, so I thought it would have made for an okay picture.
And Logan Kaufman had to panda on the football field, correct?
Yes, where Logan climbed up the goalpost. Again, I didn't think it was safe, but we had to do everything to Grayson's satisfaction.
And Harper had to panda on this payphone, right?
Yes, again, it was extremely dangerous.
Now, when you got there, you said that it looks extremely dangerous, didn't you?
I didn't understand why Grayson would want her to climb something so risky. It was so old and rickety.
And you suggested that Harper didn't climb it at all, didn't you?
I did. I said, even though it wasn't to Grayson's satisfaction, we wouldn't be abiding by his orders, it was a lot safer just to panda on a nearby tree.
And didn't you suggest that she climb somewhere else around the payphone, just so long as the payphone was in the shot?
That was my suggestion, but again, we had to do everything to Grayson's satisfaction, not mine.
But Harper climbed that payphone, didn't she?
Yes, she had to.
And as she climbed, you again reminded her that maybe this wasn't the best thing to do.
That's what I said. It still wasn't safe, but we had to do everything that Grayson wanted us to.
But Harper climbed anyways, correct?
Again, she had to.
Now, when she started climbing, the gate began to creak, as you said.
It did, uncontrollably. This is why I thought it still wasn't safe.
And as she got higher, the creaking only got louder, as you stated. Now, it's your contention that, yes or no, Grayson forced Harper to climb this gate.
Yes, Grayson told her to climb at the payphone, and the only place to panda was at the very, very top.
But, yes or no, was Grayson present when Harper climbed it?
No, that's what made it so strange. Grayson had told us to make this feat the best of all. I didn't understand why he didn't come with us to make sure that we were being safe.
So, could Harper have gotten down of this payphone, or was she forced by every ounce of her own will to climb it?
Again, it wasn't free will. We had to do everything that Grayson wanted us to do, or we would have gotten kicked out of Zip. She didn't really have a choice.
So there was no way Harper could have gotten down from this gate?
Again, I told her it wasn't safe, but we had to do what Grayson wanted us to.
But Grayson didn't physically force her to climb it.
Grayson told her to panda at the payphone, and the only place to panda was at the top. So yes, I would say that he did.
But Grayson didn't tell her to panda on the payphone, did he?
The only place to panda was at the very top, 25 feet up, where she fell from.
But didn't Grayson tell Harper to panda at or around the payphone?
Not around, at the payphone, and like I said, the only place to panda was at the very, very top of the structure.
At the payphone, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
May redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Koltash, who ordered Harper to panda at the payphone?
Grayson Zane did.
And where was the only place that Harper could panda?
At the very top, 25 feet up in the air.
Thank you, Ms. Koltash. No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Your next witness, you may sit down.
Prosecution calls Dr. Morgan McCabe to the stand.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
I do.
May I proceed? Could you please introduce yourself to the judge and to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Morgan McCabe.
What is your educational background?
I received both a PhD and a master's in botany from Utopia University.
Now, at the time of Miss Finch's death, what was your occupation?
At that time, I was a postdoctoral researcher and instructor at UU.
And do you know the defendant in today's case, Mr. Grayson Zane?
Yes, I do.
How do you know the defendant?
I actually had him in class in my introductory biology class in 2011.
How was the defendant in class?
Terrible. When he even bothered to show up, and even then, it wasn't worth it. Because of this behavior, his grades started slipping, and eventually it came close to dipping below the 3.5 GPA needed to stay in Zip. And of course, that was when the pledge master at the time, Chip Kaufman, came to me and demanded that I give Grayson an A.
Objection, Your Honor. This is hearsay by Chip Kaufman.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
No direct statements were made.
May I respond?
Yes.
The witness testified that Chip Kaufman demanded she give A's to the work, which is a statement, Your
I'll
Honor.
sustain the objection.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, when Chip approached you, what did you respond?
Well, initially, I knew I couldn't give Grayson these A's. He just didn't deserve them. He didn't care about class at all.
Objection,
so-
Your Honor. This is speculation. The witness can't possibly testify as to if Grayson Zane cared about coming to class.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This is a proper lay witness opinion, as Grayson Zane was in Dr. McCabe's lab at the time and reported all of this to Dr. McCabe.
I'll sustain the objection. She's speculating as to what was in his mind. She can testify as to what she observed in his grades and so forth, but not his intent. Let's put it that way.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Dr. McCabe, did you give the defendant these A's?
Initially, no. As I said before, he didn't even come to class, so I had to give him an F on the midterm.
Now, after you gave the defendant an F on the midterm, how did the ZIP president, Chip Kaufman, react?
He was furious with me. He was waving the Zip bylaws in my face, and I knew that I had to give in at that point. I just felt so threatened.
Was that the end of it?
Unfortunately, No. I didn't just give Grayson a break on a few papers. You see, it seemed that I had to keep giving Grayson A's that he didn't deserve because he kept threatening me and blackmailing me into doing it. And I know it was wrong. I was the professor. I should have acted with control and with that power, but I didn't feel that I had any in that situation.
Now, you said that the defendant blackmailed you into giving these unearned grades. How did he do this?
Well, he would use something called the carrot and stick approach. At first, he would flatter me, say I was being a good zipper, and then when he knew he had me in a corner, he would threaten me and say that he would expose everything and make me lose everything that I loved unless I kept up with what he wanted.
Now, turning our attention to the fall semester at Utopia University, when did this semester begin?
August 15th, 2014.
And during this semester, did the defendant ever express any concerns with a Harper Finch?
Yes, he did. One day he came into the lab and said that Harper had found a botany paper for my class and was close to uncovering the entire grading scandal.
What, if anything, did the defendant propose to do about this new turn of events?
He wanted to scare Harper into silence. He wanted to terrorize her so she wouldn't say anything.
What do you mean by terrorize Harper Finch?
Well, Grayson had this idea to put bed bugs in Harper's bed, and he thought that it would just keep her from talking.
But I'd like to quickly turn our attention to the weeks leading up to Miss Finch's death. Did you have any contact with the defendant during this time?
Yes, I did. We crossed paths many times in the lab. I was in there for botany projects, and Grayson was doing his thesis on entomology.
Did you monitor the defendant in the lab?
Not really. You see, we were on entirely different tracks, and I found his experiments tedious and boring. And in addition to that, Dr. Shelby Grody was advising him on his thesis, so I figured Dr. Grody would be doing so.
Were those your only encounters with the defendant?
No. I remember specifically on September 6th, Grayson came storming into the lab in this rage, and I knew that Harper had not given up.
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculation. The witness can't possibly know that Harper's actions based on this.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This is a proper lay witness opinion, and she is allowed to testify to what she thinks Harper Finch was planning
May
to
I
do.
respond? The witness said she knew that Harper Finch had not given up.
It's an opinion. I'll overrule the objection.
Yes, Your Honor. Will you finish?
No. As I said before, I knew based on the amount of rage and desperation that Grayson held that Harper had not given up.
What, if anything, did the defendant say to silence Miss Finch, like you said before?
After that, he said that he had rigged the third feat of fortitude to be a donut challenge, and knowing that Harper was a diabetic, it landed her in the hospital.
How did you respond?
I was shocked. I looked at Grayson and I said, all of this grading scandal, keeping it a secret, it's not worth someone's life. We need to just drop it here and now.
Now, after you told the defendant to stop the whole thing, how would you describe his demeanor?
I've never seen Grayson so angry, so desperate.
Now, later that night, were you in the lab?
No, I had to run out for a faculty meeting, so unfortunately I had to leave Grayson alone in the lab for a time.
After you left the defendant unattended in the lab, the next day, did you notice anything out of the ordinary?
Actually, yes, I did. I noticed that there were several insect transport carriers missing, as well as about half of the termites in his terrarium.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. You have a PhD in botany, correct?
That is correct, yes. I received it from Utopia University.
And after you graduated Utopia, you worked there, correct?
Yes, as I mentioned before, I was a postdoctoral researcher and instructor at UU.
And you described Utopia as a paradise for you.
Yes, their botany department was second only in size and scope to Harvard. It was my dream to be there.
And you're now working at a Wally World Garden Center.
Yes, I am.
And you attribute your fall from paradise to Wally World Garden Center to Grayson Zane.
I do.
When in actuality, you were terminated at UU because of a grading scandal that you were involved in.
I was terminated because of this grading scandal, but again, all of this had to do with Grayson himself as well.
So that's a yes.
Yes, it would be most certainly an ashamed yes.
And this began in 2011.
Yes, it did.
And that's when Chip Kaufman came to you and asked you to be more lenient towards Grayson's schedule.
Yes, he frankly demanded that I give Grayson an A instead of tutoring him or maybe taking him aside after class. Instead, he just demanded that I give Grayson.
And then you began receiving gift cards to local businesses and restaurants on your desk.
Yes, they were anonymous, but I felt so dirty because I knew they were from Chip.
But your involvement in this scandal went way beyond just one zipper, correct?
Yes, after a period of time, Grayson began telling other zippers to take my classes and then threatening me so I would give them A's too.
You ended up giving over 20 or so zippers A's on little to no work.
Yes, I did, and again, it was wrong. And everything that I did then, I regret wholeheartedly.
And you knew if someone came forward or exposed you, you stood to lose quite a bit, didn't you?
Yes, I did know this.
You stood to lose your job,
Yes, sir.
your lab,
Yes, sir.
your plants,
Yes,
as well as your reputation.
yes, I did.
It was in the fall of 2014 when Grayson came to you in a panic, wasn't it?
Yeah, in a panic and in a rage almost. Yeah.
He said that Harper Finch found a paper that you had given an undeserving grade on, correct?
Yes, I think he said it was a Botany 301 paper, one of the many classes he took.
That's when Grayson suggested you try to scare Harper.
Yes, he said that we needed to terrorize her so she wouldn't say anything.
And you said you couldn't let Harper find out.
I will admit, I did say that. I wasn't thinking. I was terrified, but I never knew Grayson would take those words and take them so far.
But you did nothing to stop him, did you?
I didn't know that he was going to do anything.
But you did nothing to stop him.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Moving on. When you still worked at Utopia University, you managed the entomology lab there.
I was a supervisor for both the entomology lab and the botany lab, yes.
And when you worked there, you had all the same access to all the resources that everyone else did, correct?
Yes, I would say I did.
And that includes the Formosan subterranean termite?
Yes, though I never really thought about it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor. Who came forth and exposed the grading scandal?
I did.
What, if anything, did you lose after exposing it?
I lost everything.
Did anyone force you to do this?
No.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross.
No recross, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Thank you, Your
Your
Honor.
next witness.
Prosecution calls Dr. Carter Gooding to the stand. Before I proceed, may I ask how much time I have remaining? Thank you.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth. See? Proceed.
Can you please introduce yourself to the judge and to the jury?
Good morning. My name is Dr. Carter Gooding.
And what, if anything, do you do for a living, Dr. Gooding?
I am a forensic entomologist.
What's entomology?
Entomology is a branch of zoology concerned with the study of insects.
Could you describe to us your educational background on the matter?
Of course. I received my Bachelor's of Science from Purdue University in Biological Engineering, along with a minor in Architectural Engineering. I decided to specialize, so I went to get my PhD in entomology.
And when you received your PhD, did you complete any postdoctoral training?
Yes, I did. I was hired by the FBI to work in their National Criminal Laboratory.
And how long did you work with the FBI?
For about 10 years, from 1992 to 2002.
Dr. Gooding, as an expert witness, do you review any testimony relating to today's case in order to make your findings?
Yes, I actually reviewed the affidavits of Logan Kaufman, Morgan McCabe, Grayson Zane, Avery Coltash, and even the final draft of Dr. Shelby Garudi's. I also reviewed multiple exhibits, including a police report, which included an engineering audit.
Is this common practice in your field?
Yes, of course. The more evidence we have to support our findings, the more accurate our investigation will actually be.
And do you use these findings to come to scientifically sound conclusions?
Yes.
Dr. Gooding, how did you become involved in today's case?
I received a phone call from my company, AFEC, the American Forensic Entomology Consultancy, on September 15th. I immediately packed all of my gear up into my Range Rover and headed down for Utopia University.
And when you arrived, what happened next?
I met with the Vice Deans for Facilities, Frankfurt Millam, and the police chief, who both took me to the payphone.
And what did you find at the payphone?
I noticed that the base was made of stone. It was in great shape.
Objection, Your Honor. This is outside the scope of this witness's expertise, which is forensic entomology.
Can I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
This witness did testify that he had a minor in architectural engineering, and I believe he's very qualified to make these statements.
A minor is very different from a PhD. I don't believe that this witness has the expertise to be considered an expert in architecture.
Overall.
Dr. Gooding, what did you find when you arrived at the payphone?
I noticed that the base was made of stone and it was in great shape. The middle was made of lacquered wood and it was in decent shape, but the top portion was just ripped away, completely destroyed.
Did you go up and look at this portion?
Yes, I did. I grabbed the ladder off of my truck, put it up to the payphone, and oh my goodness, I noticed a colony of super termites, Formosan subterranean termites.
You sound shocked, Dr. Gooding. Why is this?
Well, these are Formosan subterranean termites. Like I said, they have the name super termites. They're not native. I had no clue why they would be here.
What do you mean by super termite?
They're actually called super termites because of the amount of wood a colony can consume. You see, the regular eastern termite can consume 5 grams of wood per day, but the Formosan subterranean termite can consume 80 times as much, almost 400 grams of wood per day.
Dr. Gooding, what is your conclusion as to what caused the payphone to collapse?
I can say within a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that these termites weakened the wood, and when Harper Finch's weight was placed on the wood, it collapsed.
And what is your opinion on as to how these termites made their way into the wood?
They would have had to have been placed there by an outside vector or someone other than naturally occurring.
Are these termites native to this region?
No, they are not.
Is there any way that these termites could have made their way into the payphone without the help of an outside vector?
Yes, I consider the possibility of a dormant colony, but this is extremely unlikely.
Why is this extremely unlikely, Dr. Gooding?
Well, for 2 reasons. First, you need the most ideal conditions, and Utopia University does not have the most ideal conditions. And second, the scientific evidence supporting dormancy lasting more than 19 years with the yucca moth is very slim. It lacks basic evidence.
Did you investigate the entomology lab at the university?
I did, yes.
And what did you find, Dr. Gooding?
I found the super termite colony that was seemingly half empty, as well as some chemicals that were missing.
Was there any explanation for this disappearance?
No. Surprisingly, the lab notes were well written, and I assumed there would be some explanation, but there wasn't, and no one around could even give me an explanation.
In your expert opinion, what might these missing chemicals have been used for?
They're known to make synthetic scents or pheromones.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness is speculating as to these chemicals being used to create these pheromones that have these pheromones have never been created before, so he's speculating that these chemicals could have been used to make these pheromones.
May I respond, Your Honor? This witness is an expert in entomology and is very familiar with these chemicals and is well versed on the theories of pheromones.
May I respond? These chemicals have never been successfully created, so it'd be impossible for anyone to know which chemicals would have been used to make these pheromones.
I'm going to overrule. That could be a subject of cross, but overrule.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Gooding, in your expert opinion, what might these chemicals have been used for?
Like I said, they're known to make pheromones that can trigger insect behavior and attract them into one specific area.
And did you make any connections with pheromones to a party in today's case?
Yes, the defendant, Grayson Zane, was actually studying these termites and chemicals inside of the lab.
Would you recognize a copy of the defendant's lab notes?
I would, yes.
Let the record reflect on showing opposing counsel have been previously marked as Exhibit 10. Would you like a courtesy copy, Your Honor? May I approach the bench? May I approach the witness?
Yes.
Dr. Gooding, what are these?
These are the lab notes. They were logged by Grayson Zane.
Do they appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
They do, yes.
Have they been changed or altered in any way?
No, they have not.
At this time, the State moves for the introduction of Exhibit 10 into evidence.
Without objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
Be admitted.
Dr. Gooding, can you please read to us the lab notes taken on September 11, 2015?
Of course. Right here it says count results. 2% increase in workers, 1.8% increase in weight.
So, in terms this jury can understand, what does that mean?
Well, an increase in workers basically means that termites were increased. Their consumption was increased as well as the quantity of termites.
Now, was this theory mirrored on the Payfong Arch?
Yes, actually, the colony was concentrated in this specific area, which is a sign of the use of a pheromone. The normal colonies usually spread outward, but in this case, they were concentrated in the center.
Dr. Gooding, did you run any genetic testing on the termites found at the scene?
Yes, I did, and they were virtually genetically identical.
What does this mean?
It makes the possibility of dormancy even more unlikely. The possibility of a genetic strand from Asia hundreds of years ago looking nearly identical to Formosan subterranean termites found at Utopia University is almost 1 million to 1.
Dr. Gooding, what is your final conclusion in today's case?
1, termites were used to collapse the structure. 2, that these termites were placed there by an outside vector. And 3, when Harper Finch's weight was placed on the structure, it collapsed due to a pheromone used.
Thank you. No further questions.
Cross?
Yes, Your Honor. Doctor, your work began in this case with a call from the American Forensic Entomological Consultancy, or AFEC, correct?
Yes, I'm a partner in the company.
And AFEC only does work for prosecuting attorneys.
Unless we are subpoenaed by the defense, that is correct. Our expertise lies in the prosecution.
And for your AFEC work, you're being paid over $1,500 a day.
That is correct. In my private practice, I'm actually paid $300 an hour, but today...
But for your AFEC work here today, you're being paid
Objection, I
$1,500.
ask the counsel, it's the witness.
I'm the answer.
Yes, Your Honor.
could you please re-ask your question?
For your AFEC work, you're being paid $1,500 a day here today.
That is correct, a flat rate.
And the prosecution is also paying you to support their case here today.
Objection, argumentative.
Your Honor, this goes to the bias of the witness.
The question was, the prosecution's paying him?
Yes, the prosecution is paying him to support their case here today.
I'll sustain as to the last phrase.
And the
Move to strike, Your Honor.
Please?
Move to strike.
It'll be stricken.
Yes, Your Honor.
So the prosecution is also paying you here today.
Yes, I'm being paid a flat rate from my company, the American Forensic Entomology Consultants.
And doctor, when you arrived on the scene at Utopia University, you said that you thought the payphone to be in decent shape.
Like I said, the base was made of stone, great shape. Everything else was in excellent shape except for the top portion that was ripped away.
You said it looked solid to the eye?
The base was made of stone, great shape. The middle was made of lacquered wood. It was in decent shape. That's what I said.
But you never ran any tests on this gate to see how solid it really was.
No, it was only to my observation. I looked at it when I arrived, and that's exactly what I saw.
So you were just assuming its condition by simply looking at it?
Well, I did read Erdl engineering report, as well as some other documents that help me support this finding. But usually you can tell by a structure based on looking at it.
And you also realized that the gate had been at the university since 1868.
Yes,
And that the last time any repairs had been done to the gate were in the 1960s.
and that is correct.
And the last time this gate had even been touched at all was in the 80s with a fresh coat of paint.
To my knowledge, yes.
And another thing you noticed at the scene were a number of candles.
Yes, there was a memorial there held for Harper Finch.
And fragrances have been known to affect termites' behavior, haven't they?
I did consider this a possibility, but the memorial was spread out around the payphone, not necessarily up on top of it, so it wouldn't have contributed to the termites' behavior.
But yes, fragrances have been known to affect insects' behavior.
Yes, but I ruled this out.
And when you found the Formosan termite colony on the payphone, you quickly dismissed that a dormant colony could have been present inside the gate.
It was extremely unlikely that a dormant colony could have been there for hundreds of years, because the longest recorded amount of time was 19 years.
So this left intentional implantation as the most likely cause.
Yes, that would have been the most likely cause.
And then you remembered that you'd seen a group of Utopia students collecting these very same termites in Florida for the university's lab.
Yes.
And when asked the university about it, no one at the university sanctioned this trip or even knew about it.
Well, that wasn't really my job to find out who placed the termites there. It was more to discover how they got.
But doctor, when you asked the university...
Objection, I ask the council allows the witness to finish.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Let him answer.
When you asked the university, no one sanctioned this trip or even knew about it, did they?
No. My only job was to investigate how they got there.
And the vice dean of facilities, Frankfurt Millam, frankly told you that this trip was impossible.
Objection, this council is calling my witness to use hearsay to answer this question.
Overrule.
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you please repeat your question?
The vice dean of facilities at Utopia University, Frankfurt Millam, frankly told you that this trip was impossible.
That is correct, yes.
And when you searched the entomology lab at Utopia University and you found the Formosan termite colony, you said it looked half empty to you.
Yes, it was. When I arrived there, half of the terrarium was missing.
And Dr. McCabe explained that there had been a recent bacterial infection to come through the lab, and that could have been the reason why part of the colony was missing.
Well, no one actually gave me an explanation as to how they were missing, and even in the lab notes, there was no written documentation of this bacterial infection.
But Dr. McCabe did explain to you that there had been a recent bacterial infection in the lab that could have been the reason
Objection
why...
asked and answered.
Overrule.
Yes, Your Honor.
Dr. McCabe gave you an explanation that there had been a recent bacterial infection in the lab that could have been the cause for the termites missing.
Yes, however, when there's a bacterial infection, it will usually kill all of the termites, not just half of the terrarium.
So you quickly dismissed Dr. McCabe's explanation.
That is correct, yes. It seems very unlikely that only half of them would be missing by chance.
And after you searched the entire lab, you came to the conclusion that pheromones may have been used to focus the termites' attention on the payphone.
Yes, that is correct.
However, you soon realized that no such pheromones had ever been successfully created before.
Not exactly. There hasn't been any scientific documentation of these pheromones being created. However, in Grayson Zane's lab notes, he was actually having some success with synthesizing this pheromone.
Doctor, to your knowledge, no pheromones have ever been successfully created.
In the scientific world, none have been created 100% accurately.
And so the existence of these pheromones is purely theoretical at this point.
There is evidence supporting that Grayson Zane actually had success with synthesizing this, like I said.
But none of these pheromones were found on the scene, were they?
No, the chemicals in the lab were actually water soluble, so they would have disappeared after it rained the night after the incident.
That's if these pheromones were used at all, correct?
Oh, that is correct, yes.
And you also did genetic analysis on the termites to determine their origin.
I did, and they were virtually identical to the ones in the lab.
But after this genetic analysis, you still can't say with 100% certainty that these termites came from UU's entomology lab.
That is correct. I had to look at other evidence, such as half of the colony missing, but you are correct, Counselor. There was some lack of knowledge on that.
So you can't tell us with 100% certainty where these termites came from.
No, that really wasn't my job.
And you can't tell us how solid the gate was before it collapsed.
No, I investigated it after the incident, and to my knowledge, there was a colony of Formosan subterranean termites, a dense colony. These are very ferocious termites.
But no, you can't tell us how solid it was before it collapsed.
No, not before the incident. I investigated that.
And you can't tell us if any pheromones were used or not.
Looking at the evidence of the structure, it showed that they were concentrated in this one area, and they were spread inward and not outward like my past investigation, so it did point to the use of a pheromone.
But that's a no. You can't say with 100% certainty that pheromones were used.
Not 100%, but the evidence did point to the use of a synthetic scent.
Now let's assume, despite your assumptions, that you are correct. You can't tell us who placed the termites on the payphone, can you?
No, that wasn't my job. My job was to only determine how they got there, and that was through an outside vendor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Dr. Gooding, does your payment in today's case at all affect your testimony?
No, not at all.
And was the defendant having some success in synthesizing a pheromone?
Yes, there was record in these lab notes that there was an increased consumption of the wood and the quantity of the termites, so that leads to some success.
Thank you. No further questions.
Recross.
No, Your Honor.
You may step down.
Your Honor, may I publish the exhibits to the jury?
Sure. Anything further from the state?
No, Your Honor. At this time, prosecution rests.
Is the defense ready to present your case?
Yes, Your Honor. This
Please
time the
proceed.
defense is called for Grayson Zane to stand.
Solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Proceed.
Thank you. Now, please state your name for the jury.
My name is Grayson Zane.
And how are you employed?
Well, currently I'm doing odd jobs and trying to clear my name. That's all I've been doing ever since I was expelled from Utopia University in 2014.
And do you know why you're here today?
Of course I do. I'm here to clear my name and to get my reputation back. Harper died in an accident, but I had nothing to do with it.
Now, how did you come to know Harper Finch?
Well, I first learned of Harper the week before freshman orientation in August of 2014. I was given a list with 3 names on it, including Harper's. They were the best and brightest entering Utopia University that year. And I was considering choosing them to be pledges for ZIP.
And did you end up selecting Harper Finch to be in ZIP?
Of course I did. I was so excited to have Harper join ZIP because of her academics and how well she'd been talked up. But looking back, I don't think she wanted to be there in the first place.
Now, what do you mean?
Well, she hadn't been chosen for ZIP more than a week before she started to complain about me. And in my opinion, she didn't like the fact that she had to complete the feats of fortitude.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation.
It's his opinion. Overruled.
Yes, Your
Thank
Honor.
you. Now, what were these feats of fortitude?
The feats of fortitude, it was a tradition for ZIP. It was a challenge design, or series rather, of challenges designed for the pledges to complete in order to become a full ZIP member. They weren't that difficult, and they certainly weren't hazing.
And how many were there in 2014?
There were only 4.
Now, what was the first of these feats that the pledges were required to complete?
It's the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, where you take a bucket of ice and dump it over your head.
Is that all it was?
That's what I assigned, but the pledges wanted to take it up a notch. They got permission to swim, or film rather, in the Utopia University swimming pool. At the end of swimming 10 laps, they jumped into a whirlpool full of ice and then proceeded to dump the buckets of ice onto each other. And I would say it was a huge success because we raised around $40,000.
Now, what was the second of these feats?
It was also a video, but this time it was promoting blood cancer awareness as well as bone marrow donor registry. The pledges went overboard once again with the mess that they created at the end with confetti. so I had Harper and Avery clean up the mess.
Now, why didn't Logan Kaufman have to clean up this mess?
Well, she didn't make the mess. It wasn't her idea to have the finale full of confetti, so I took her to mix her with me.
And how did you perceive the Zip House after this happened?
Well, it seemed to me that Harper and Avery were sending me because of it. The only thing I did was take Logan to a party and made them clean up the mess that they made. I figured they would get over it, but I was wrong.
What do you mean?
After the second feat of fortitude in the Zip Archives room, Harper and Avery confronted me with the old Botany 301 paper I'd written for Dr. McCabe's class. And they started to try to bully me about it. So I panicked.
Now, why would you panic about this specific paper?
The only reason I'd gotten an A on the paper was because Dr. McCabe had been in Zip when she was in college. And my former pledge master had an arrangement with Dr. McCabe, which allowed me as well as other Zip members to receive good grades. And ultimately, this allowed me to focus more time onto my entomological studies as well as my new duties as a newly found Zip member.
And did you tell Dr. McCabe about this paper's discovery?
Yes, I did. And whenever I told her, she said that we needed to convince Harper that
Objection,
Zip
Your
wasn't
Honor.
something.
This is hearsay.
Your Honor, this goes to show Morgan McCabe's then existing state of mind and the subsequent actions taken by Grace and Zane after this statement.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
Dr. McCabe's specific statements are being used to prove the truth of the matter asserted, and they are not allowed in court today.
I'll sustain the objection.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
Yes. Go ahead.
Now, how did you get started on the third feat of fortitude?
Well, after this confrontation with Morgan McCabe, that's where I got the idea to use the next feat of fortitude to dissuade Harper a little bit. But I get a head start on that without doing anything.
Well, how's that possible?
On August 31st, Harper had woken up with bed bugs. And later that afternoon, she accused me of trying to haze her with the bed bugs, rather. And the timing was a coincidence. I had worked in the entomology lab, but I had nothing to do with this incident.
Now, what's the lab you're referring to?
Dr. McCabe's lab. And in fact, in the lab, I took notes in my activity log.
Your Honor, let the record reflect I'm opposing the witness what's been previously admitted as Exhibit 10.
Your Honor, may I ask that I see this exhibit before he gives it to the witness?
Yes.
Now, according to your notes, Mr. Zane, were you ever successful with your pheromone experiment?
Well, no, I wasn't. Right here on August 30th, I even said, failed. I admit it. I'm not good at chemistry. I should find somebody to help me with this.
Now, what did you do for the third feat of fortitude?
Well, it was a Crazy Cream 5K. It's the same thing as a 5K, except you take a break in the middle, eat half a dozen donuts, and then continue the race. But I planned for Harper to eat 12 donuts instead of the regular 6, just to show her that Zip doesn't tolerate keeping such a messy room.
And why would eating a few extra donuts dissuade Harper from being in Zip?
I knew that Harper was a diabetic, and I figured that if she ate those few extra donuts, she would feel a little sick to her stomach and not do any real harm. I just wish that she would have told me how dangerous the race was going to be for her.
What do you mean?
Well, the problem came late during the race, whenever she was almost finished running. She looked like she was about to faint, so I insisted that we take her to the hospital.
And did you?
Yes, we did.
And what happened at the hospital?
Well, the ER doctor stabilized Harper fairly quickly. She had taken some extra insulin to compensate for the amount of donuts that she'd eaten. Although Harper had thanked me for taking her to the hospital, I felt terrible.
Now, did your attempt to dissuade her ultimately work?
At first I thought it had, but the next day I received an email from Harper, which was copying Avery, and it accused me of hazing. And I've never hazed anybody that's come through the Zip Pledge program.
Now, what did you plan for the fourth and final feat of fortitude?
I was going to have the pledges plank around different Utopia University landmarks, but Harper wanted to put a spin on it. She suggested that we do Panda Ink to raise money for the Utopia Zoo, and I agreed. So I had Logan Panda at the football stadium, Harper at the Pei Fong in the botanical gardens, and Avery Coltash at the student union.
Now, did you assign Harper to climb on the payphone?
No, I didn't. I assigned her to climb around the payphone, hoping that she would just get the payphone in the background of her picture.
Now, what happened the day of the fourth feat?
That morning, I assembled the pledges together to announce the final feat of fortitude. And Harper, she'd been looking a little disinterested in zip lately, so I began to contemplate giving her a zip committee chair.
And did you ever end up giving her this position?
Well, I never got the chance. That night I was informed that Harper had fallen headfirst from the payphone gate, that she didn't make it.
Now, Mr. Zane, I have to ask, did you kill Harper Finch?
No, I didn't. This was just an accident. And I was so confused as to how this could have happened, because the last thing I said to her was to be safe, and that being safe was all that mattered.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to discuss your relationship with the defense expert witness, Dr. Shelby Grody. Dr. Grody was a professor at Utopia University,
Yes, he was.
the same university where you used to go to school.
Yes, around 4 years ago.
And you and Dr. Grody co-authored a research paper.
I really wrote it, but he wanted to put his name on it, and I didn't disagree with it.
You consider him a friend.
I'd say that we're more in a professional relationship.
However, you do consider Dr. Grody a friend, correct?
Well, yes, because of our conversations about his studies.
So is that a yes, he's your friend?
Sure.
All right, now moving on, I'd like to discuss your involvement in the zip grading scandal. You participated in this grading scandal for several years.
Yes, sadly I did. It was orchestrated by Chip Kaufman as well as Morgan McCabe. And I was told that I didn't have to attend class and not to worry about my grades.
So not only were you a participant, you later became a promoter of the grading scandal as you encouraged your fellow zippers to take these classes.
Well, I just told them about the deal that I had with Morgan McCabe, and they took Morgan McCabe's classes.
And you knew that if this grading scandal was uncovered, you would be expelled.
Yes, I did, and Morgan also knew that she stood to lose a whole lot more than me.
However, you did know that you, not Dr. McCabe, you would be expelled.
Yes, as I just said.
And when Miss Finch approached you and told you that she was going to expose the grading scandal, you were desperate.
She didn't tell me anything of a grading scandal. She just confronted me with the paper, and I did overreact, which I shouldn't have.
However, you knew that you couldn't let that happen.
Let what happen exactly?
Let the uncovering of the grading scandal happen.
Yes, I did, but at the same time, I didn't know that Harper Finch knew anything about the grading scandal. All she told me was that she thought this paper was a joke.
She brought you that paper that you had received an A on that was clearly an F.
Yes, as I just stated.
And she was threatening to expose the grading scandal, yes or no?
If she knew about it, yes.
Now, Harper Finch was a freshman when you were a senior, correct?
Yes, she was, in 2014.
You were her pledge master.
As well as the president of Zeta Iota Pi.
And you picked out the payphone specifically for Miss Finch.
Yes, as well as the football field for Logan and the student union for Avery Coltash.
However, you did pick out the payphone specifically for Miss Finch.
Yes, as I just stated.
Now I'd like to talk about a few of your hazing incidents. You enacted this Crazy Cream 5K run, correct?
Yes, I did. I
And
figured that it was a good charity event for the American Diabetes Association.
Yes, and when Harper Finch pledged to the Zip Honor Society, she gave you information on her diabetes.
Yes, she did. She had to fill out a medical form.
So you knew that Harper Finch was a type 1 diabetic.
Yes, but I don't know much about diabetes. I just figured that if you ate some extra sugar, you'd feel a little sick to your stomach.
Exactly, knowing it would make her sick. You had her eat twice the number of donuts as the other pledges.
I just figured that it would make her a little sick, and I didn't anticipate anything bad happening to her.
And now going back to Harper Finch threatening to expose the grading scandal, you became Zip president and pledge master in an effort to keep your fraud undercover.
And as I shouldn't have done that, I also did it because it was a great honor to be the president and and pledge master of the greatest co-ed honor society that Utopia University has ever seen.
However, you did become ZIP president and pledge master in an effort to keep your fraud undercover, yes or no?
In part, yes.
All right, now moving on. After Harper Finch was released from the hospital, she sent you an email.
Yes, the day after.
And you replied to this email saying you didn't die this time.
I did. And tone can be conveyed poorly over email.
And later you were charged for hazing.
Yes, I was. And I pled guilty because I was afraid of going to jail. That
However,
frightened me.
as we sit here today in court, you still don't believe that your actions ever rose to the level of hazing.
No, I didn't.
Now, I'd like to read stipulation number 9 to the jury. Grayson Zane pleaded guilty to hazing, a third-degree misdemeanor violation of UPC section 8.3. So you did, in fact, plead guilty to hazing.
Yes, but pleading guilty and actually committing the offense are two very completely different things. I was just afraid of jail time, and I got community service instead.
However, you did plead guilty, yes or no?
As I said multiple times, I had.
However, you don't believe that your actions rose to the level of hazing.
Once again, I do not.
Now, just to be clear, not only did you haze Harper Finch, but you threatened her life, correct?
When did I threaten her life?
In that email when you said you didn't die, so you passed this time.
Objection, Your Honor. Sidebar? There was not a question elicited by the prosecutor.
May I respond, Your Honor?
He wants to sign.
Your Honor, this is cross-examination.
What's your objection again?
The counselor made no question. It was only a statement.
May I respond, Your Honor? This is cross-examination. I'm allowed to ask the witness about the specific statements. I will forward in the question if the present counsel would like.
I appreciate it.
Mr. Zane, to Harper Finch, did you say you didn't die this time?
Yes, but it was over an email and the tone was conveyed poorly.
However, you did threaten her life, correct?
No, I didn't threaten her life.
Is it your testimony today that you did not threaten Harper Finch's life?
Yes, it is. I would never threaten her life or anybody's life.
Yes or no, did you say you didn't die this time?
Yes, if I stated multiple times.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross?
Redirect.
Redirect, sorry. Redirect.
Now, Mr. Zane, when you got to the hospital, the doctor told you that she had overdosed on insulin, correct?
Yes, and as a result, that's why she almost went into diabetic shock.
So it was Harper's actions, right?
Yes, she took too much insulin for the amount of sugar that she consumed.
Now, what was the last conversation you had with the pledges?
Well,
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope of my cross.
What was the question again?
I asked the defendant what the last conversation he had with the pledges was.
I did not.
Pledges?
The zip pledges.
Was that not, was that part of the?
No, Your Honor, that was not part of my
I don't
cross-examination.
recall that. I'll sustain.
Yes, Your Honor.
Move to strike.
Yes.
No further questions.
Free cross.
Go ahead.
When you informed Harper Finch that you were going to have her eat 12 donuts, did she protest?
yes, she did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense calls Logan Coughlin.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? Your other right hand.
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hi, I'm Logan Kaufman.
And why are you here today, Ms. Kaufman?
Well, I'm here today because I knew Grayson. And what I saw, Grayson didn't do anything to Harper, let alone kill her.
Now let's take a step back. How did you first meet Grayson Zane?
Well, you see, I'd heard about Grayson for years from my brother Chip. Chip was the pledge master at Utopia University for Zeta Eta Pi when Grayson was an incoming freshman. And then when I was a freshman at Utopia University, Grayson was a pledge master. And when he chose me to be a part of Zeta Eta Pi, I was just so honored and thrilled.
Other than yourself, who else was chosen by Grayson that year?
Harper Finch and Avery Coltash were the other two pledges that year.
Had you known either one of them before joining ZIP?
Not really. Me and Harper did have a class together on the first day, and it was a writing seminar. Our professor gave us this pop quiz on grammar. Now, you have to see, grammar is not my strong suit. And so I went blank on one question, and I peeked over
Objection,
at
Your
her.
Honor, this witness has become narrative.
Ooh.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, how did you first meet Harper? You just explain how you first met Harper Finch.
Right, we had a class together, and our professor gave us a pop quiz on grammar, and I did go blank on one of the questions because it's not my strong suit, and I did peek over at her paper for just a second, but she caught me and she did tell the professor.
And did Harper do anything at Zip similar to this incident?
Yeah, she did actually. One morning, she came bursting into my room, obviously upset about the fact that I'm getting special treatment and the fact that I'm a legacy. I mean, I don't understand why she was coming to me about it. I don't make the rules for Zeta Iota Pi.
Now, there's been some speculation about Harper being hazed. Did you ever witness this hazing?
No, I lived in the Zeta Iota Pi houses with Harper and Grayson, and what I saw, I didn't see Grayson haze Harper at all.
And Ms. Kaufman, did you participate in the feats of fortitude?
Of course I did.
And did anything about these feats seem dangerous to you in any way?
The only thing dangerous about them is the fact that I had to do them with Harper and Avery.
What do you mean?
Well, you see, Harper and Avery were two very competitive people, and so every chance they got, they made the feats a lot harder than what they had to be.
What was the first feat of fortitude?
The first feat of fortitude was the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. You know that fad going around where you just dump a bucket of ice on each other and take a video of it. Well, Harper, like I stated before, liked to put her own spin on things, and so we all came up with the idea to make it a little bit more exciting, you might say. And so we decided to swim 10 laps into a pool and then jump into a whirlpool full of ice while dumping buckets of ice onto each other. I do have to admit, though, it was kind of fun.
Did you ever see this competitive side to Harper again?
Yeah, actually. Every chance Harper and Avery got, they were always comparing their valedictorian speeches with each other and bragging about their brilliances.
And what was the second feat of fortitude?
The second feat of fortitude was a video that was supposed to promote blood cancer awareness, and we decided to make it to a dance video to make it fun. Well, Harper wanted to put her own spin on it, and so she came up with the idea to put confetti as the finale. Now, you see, it's not really necessarily that big of a deal, but I knew it'd make where we were filming at the library a huge mess. And I honestly didn't want to have this big mess to clean up. And so I wasn't a huge fan of it, but she was persistent about it. And so we did it, of course. And when the filming was over, the library was this huge mess.
Now, so far you've mentioned the first two feats. What was the third feat of fortitude?
The third feat of fortitude was a 5K, but the fun part about it was the fact that we got to eat 6 donuts in between.
And did anything unusual happen during this 5K?
Well, yeah, after we got done eating the donuts, all of a sudden, Harper just threw up everywhere and nearly passed out. Grayson seemed really concerned about her, so he took her to the hospital right away. Turns out, she'd eaten 12 donuts instead of 6.
Do you know why Harper had done this?
Well, when they got back from the hospital, I was informed that she'd eaten 12 instead of 6 for a punishment and consequence for leaving her room so messy.
And had you ever noticed Harper to keep a messy room?
I don't know how you couldn't have noticed. I mean, there were crumbs and snacks all over her room. I'm surprised she didn't get bugs quicker, and it turns out she had gotten bed bugs from all of the crumbs everywhere in her room.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Your Honor, this is her lay opinion and rationally based on her perception that it was because Harper kept a messy room that she got bed bugs.
May I respond?
Yes.
Your Honor, this witness is not an expert in the field of entomology and cannot testify as to the behavior of the bed bugs or why they would have gone to Harper's room.
Certainly she can render an opinion that the room may have had food that would attract bugs. Now, specifically bed bugs may be a little bit beyond. So I'll sustain as to reference to bed bugs.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
What was the final feat of fortitude, Ms. Kaufman?
Well, the final feat of fortitude, we were all called together on September 15th by Grayson to tell us that we had to plank on top of some sort of campus landmark that he was assigned to, or that he assigned to us. But that wasn't good enough for Harper.
What do you mean?
Well, Harper was competitive and she wanted to put her spin on things, so she came up with the idea to panda instead of plank. Now you see, there's not that much of a difference when you panda. You let your arms and legs hang down like you're pandaing or, resting off of a tree limb. But we ended up doing it, and I thought it was an okay idea.
Now, Ms. Kaufman, where did you have to panda?
I was assigned to the football stadium, but I chose to climb on I climbed up the football goalpost.
And could you have picked somewhere safer at the football stadium?
Of course I did, but honestly, I thought it would be worth the likes on social media, so I thought the risk would be a little exciting. But if I wanted to choose somewhere safer, I could have chose like a bench or the concession bar, anywhere that was not as high up as the football goalpost.
Where did Avery Coltash have to panda?
Avery was assigned to the student union, and she pandaed on top of some like wooden wall thing.
And where did Harper Finch have to panda?
Harper was assigned to the payphone in the botanical gardens.
And what happened when the three of you arrived at the payphone?
Well, when we got there, Harper, was going to climb the payphone, but Avery was scared that something would happen because it was a tall structure. But Harper was determined to climb it. And even though Avery did warn her, she climbed it anyways. And I do admit, I encouraged her. But if I knew any of this would happen, I never would have encouraged her to climb it. I mean, isn't it common sense not to climb something that's been there since the Civil War?
And what happened when Harper reached the top?
When Harper reached the top, there was this terrible noise. One minute she's climbing and the next I hear her scream and she's on the ground, and she must have just died instantly. I feel sick to my stomach just talking about it.
Now, Ms. Kaufman, based on what you observed, did anyone force Harper to climb the payphone?
No. Based on what I observed, nobody forced Harper to climb the payphone. Grayson had even told us that day to be safe, and he made it obvious that safety was first. Nobody forced Harper to climb that payphone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Kaufman, I'd like to discuss your membership in Zeta Iota Pi. Now, you are a Zipper, correct?
Yes, and it was such a huge honor for me.
And the Zip motto is that Zippers stick together.
Yes, Zippers always stick together unless they do something that they weren't supposed to, like breaking a law, then we won't stick together with them. But as long as they are a part of Zip and they didn't do anything wrong, we will always stick together.
Directing you back to my question, the motto is Zippers stick together.
Yes.
And you had to sign a pledge promise with this motto on it.
Yes, I did.
Would you recognize a copy of the Zip bylaws if I were to show you?
Of course I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect I'm showing opposing counsel what has been previously marked as Exhibit 1. Courtesy copy, Your Honor.
Yes.
May I approach? May I approach the witness? Now, Ms. Kaufman, this is a copy of the Zip bylaws that you had to sign.
Yes, it seems like it.
And it's a fair and accurate copy?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, prosecution moves to the introduction of Exhibit 1 into evidence.
No objections, Your Honor.
Admitted.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, can you please read the top of Section 5?
Absolutely. Zippers always stick together and help whenever possible, even when it seems impossible.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. So, Grayson was a Zipper, correct?
Grayson was our pledge master, yes.
And he was a Zipper.
Yes, he was.
And you are also a Zipper.
Yes, I am.
And this pledge promise, which is for the Zippers, says that Zippers stick together even when it seems impossible.
Yes, we all signed this.
All right, moving on, let's discuss your relationship with the defendant, Grayson Zame. Now, Grayson cut you some noticeable slack over the other pledges.
It seemed like it, but I honestly didn't think anything about it because Grayson just wanted me to be my own person because for years I was underneath Chip's shadows because my brother was one of the smartest people. And so I felt like Grayson was just trying to make me my own person.
But I'm not talking about Chip, I'm talking about Grayson. Grayson cut you some slack.
Grayson did cut me some slack sometimes.
Grayson let you have the first pick of rooms.
I mean, if you get that slack, that was just a coincidence.
But yes, Grayson let you have the first pick of rooms.
Yes, he did.
Grayson didn't make you bring him breakfast at 6 a.m. like he did Harper and Avery.
No, he didn't.
Grayson even let you go to a party while he forced Harper and Avery to clean up the Zip Archives room.
Well, it was a mixer, and Grayson said that there are multiple people that wanted to meet me because of my brother Chip.
So that's a yes to my question?
Yes.
All right, let's discuss the third feat of fortitude, the Crazy Cream 5K run. During this run, Harper had to eat 12 donuts.
Yes, afterwards I found out, and she got super sick, but Grayson took her to the hospital right away.
But during the race, you asked Harper why she had to eat 12 donuts, and she said, "It wasn't my choice. Grayson made me do it."
She said something like that, but I was running and I didn't pay much attention to it at first.
But yes, Harper said, "Grayson made me do it."
Yes.
And afterwards, when you talked to the defendant about this, the defendant said it was her punishment for having a messy room.
One of the things that, zippers are always forced is to keep a clean room. And so when you don't follow that, there's going to be consequences.
So yes, Grayson sent Harper to the hospital because she had a messy room.
Grayson had no idea that Harper would go to the hospital for eating a few extra donuts.
And yet Grayson forced Harper to eat 12 donuts because she had a messy room.
Yes.
And you thought this sounded like hazing.
I do admit I thought it sounded a little like hazing at first, but I thought Grayson was just being a leader and was just pushing Harper to be the best she could.
But afterwards, you saw Harper researching hazing on her computer.
Yes, I did.
When you reported this incident to the defendant smiled and said, "I'll take care of it."
Yes, he did, and I didn't think anything about it.
But that is what he said.
Yes, he did.
All right, let's discuss the final feat of fortitude at the payphone gate. Grayson specifically assigned Harper the payphone gate.
He assigned us all different places. Like I was assigned the football stadium, Avery was assigned the student union, and Grayson was assigned to the payphone in the botanical gardens.
But Grayson didn't assign Harper the area around the payphone gate, correct?
But Grayson also didn't assign her on the payphone.
But Grayson did not assign Harper the area around the payphone gate.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor. Grayson didn't assign Harper the area around the payphone gate.
He wasn't specific on where he wanted us all to panda. When I was assigned mine, I got to choose, and then Avery got to choose, and then he also wasn't specific on where she had to panda.
But directing you back to my question, Grayson didn't assign Harper the area around the payphone gate.
No, he also didn't assign her on the payphone.
But he did not assign Harper the area around the payphone gate.
Objection, Your Honor. Asked and answered.
Sustained. It's being argumentative.
Yes, Your Honor. And afterwards, when you arrived at the payphone, you were aware the only spot to panda was at the very top.
On the payphone, yes, that was the only spot to panda.
And you thought it looked dangerous.
Yes, I did.
And even though you thought it was dangerous, you egged Harper on.
Well, she was determined to do it, and she said that she wanted to prove to Grayson that she had more fortitude than anyone. Avery warned her not to climb it, but she was persistent, and so I do admit I did encourage her at first.
And when she got to the top, you heard her scream, "Ew, what are all these bugs?"
I did.
And then she fell 30 feet to her death.
Yes, she did, and it was the most traumatizing thing I've ever witnessed in my life.
I'm sorry that you had to lose Harper such as this, but Grayson was fanatical about termites, am I correct?
Just because Grayson loved termites does not make Grayson a murderer.
But Grayson was fanatical about termites.
Yes, he was.
Thank you. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. When after Harper fell, did you notice anything about the payphone?
Yes, I picked up a piece of the payphone, and it did practically disintegrate my hands, but there were no bugs in it or around the payphone.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Anything else?
Yes, brief recross, Your Honor. Now, you were not at the top of the payphone like Harper.
No, I was not.
And when Harper was at the top, she said, "Ew, what are all these bugs?"
She did scream that.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. Your next witness.
The defense calls Dr. Shelby Grody to the stand.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Dr. Shelby Grody.
And could you give us an idea of your educational background?
Well, I graduated from Harvard in 1952, magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa, and Zeta Iota Pi. I then received my master's degree from the School of Forestry at Yale in 1954, and then after taking a few years off to travel East Asia, I received my PhD in entomology from Darwin College at Cambridge University in England in 1964.
Thank you, Doctor. How did you become involved in this case?
Well, I've been testifying in trials ever since J. Edgar Hoover of the FBI begged me to intervene in a homicide case he couldn't quite crack. And I'll be honest, Hoover hardly impressed me, but I did agree to assist him in his investigation. And as a result, my fame grew, and I've testified, I'd say 10 or 15 times over the last few years.
I appreciate your background, Doctor, but what I meant was how did you become involved in this case today involving the defendant, Grayson Zane?
Well, in this case, I knew Grayson had been wrongly accused, so when his defense attorneys contacted me, I leapt at the opportunity. This is a simple case of a prosecutor jumping to conclusions based purely on conjecture. I, for one, stick to science and facts.
Now, before we get into your findings of today's case, I'd like to discuss your relationship with the defendant. Did you know Grayson before today?
Yes, Grayson was one of the finest young intellects at our university. He had impeccable manners, and I was certain that he had a bright future. But I assure you that my knowing Grayson has not affected my findings in this case in any way, shape, or form. I seek the truth, and that is the important thing, and I do not play favorites.
Now, you stated that you've testified in a multitude of cases before. Would that make you a forensic entomologist?
Well, back in my day, no one had really coined the term forensic entomologist, but I do have the qualifications for it, yes.
Are you familiar with the Formosan subterranean termite?
Yes, the Formosan subterranean termite, named for Formosa, which when I was a child was called Chinese Taipei, is an interesting example of a xylophage.
What is a xylophage, Doctor?
A xylophage, in essence, is an insect whose diet consists principally of wood. And the xylophage you mentioned, the Formosan subterranean termite, has actually been considered to be a super termite by some.
And why is that?
Well, frankly, other than the fact that it lives in larger colonies than other termites and eats more than other termites, there's nothing especially remarkable about it.
So if this termite's not as especially remarkable as you claim, then why is it considered a super termite by some?
Well, I, for one, don't really understand why it is considered a super termite by some. And the only real notable thing about it is that it's a very hardy organism.
What do you mean by that, Doctor?
Well, I mean exactly what I said. It's a very hardy organism. For example, I believe that the Formosan subterranean termites that were inside of the payphone had been there since at least when Andrew Johnson was president in the 1860s.
Do you think it's really that possible that the termites survive for this long in the gate?
Yes, I believe that the likeliest chance for the termites' presence is that in the 1860s, some termites burrowed into the wood, which was then lacquered to preserve it and create the beautiful payphone gate. And as a result of the lacquer, the termites would not perceive a change in their environment, which would in turn trigger an end to their dormancy.
Now, how is it that these termites could survive for such a length of time?
Well, other invertebrates, such as the tardigrade, commonly known as the water bearer, have been known to survive for decades in the desert without any food or water. And these same types of termites have been known to survive in the vacuum of space.
Now, you said that you've worked at Utopia for decades. Had you noticed any renovations onto the gate?
Well, back in the 60s, they paid for some restoration of the gate that, in my opinion, wasn't up to par. And in the late 80s or early 90s, they put a new coat of paint on it. But in my opinion, the people who were renovating the payphone probably didn't already realize it was extremely old.
Do you think it's possible that the termites were transplanted onto the gate?
I think that it is possible that the termites could have been transplanted onto the gate. However, I find it highly unlikely due to the fact that if termites were transplanted onto the gate and then you looked at the gate 1 week later, you would not see the change that was seen on the payphone when it collapsed.
Now, during your time at Utopia, had you interacted with Dr. Morgan McCabe?
Yes, Morgan was always an average talent, and she just was not up to the task of earning tenure. And now, to my understanding, she has gone from working as a professor at Utopia to a Wally World Garden Center.
Are you familiar with Dr. Carter Gooding?
Well, I actually wasn't made familiar with Dr. Gooding until he was brought onto my campus to investigate this case.
Have you reviewed Dr. Gooding's analysis of this case?
I have. The whole thing reeks of lackluster work and an effort to jump to conclusions without considering
Objection,
all
more prejudicial than
possibilities.
probative.
May I respond? This witness is an expert and has reviewed Dr. Gooding's analysis of this case. He is allowed to testify as to what his opinion on Dr. Gooding's analysis is.
May I respond, Your Honor? The witness specifically used the term reeks and lackluster, and I believe that those statements are more prejudicial than probative regarding Dr. Gooding's testimony.
I'll let the jury decide that. Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Have you reviewed Dr. Gooding's analysis of this case?
Yes, and I believe that the work just simply was not up to par because Dr. Gooding has not considered all possibilities for the termite's presence. He simply cannot conclude within a reasonable degree of entomological scientific certainty that those termites were indeed transplanted onto the gate. Therefore, the pheromone theory also does not hold up.
And why is that?
There's no evidence that pheromones have ever been synthesized, and if someone were to do that, they would have patented it. And the termite eats as fast as it eats, and no matter what pheromones were used, you cannot break the rules of nature. And the time allotted for the termites that were on the gate is simply insufficient, even if a pheromone was used, for the gate to have collapsed due to that amount of wear and tear.
No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Ross?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Dr. Grody, you're an expert in today's case.
Yes, I am.
And because of this, you shouldn't have any bias.
No, I am not biased towards anyone in this case, no.
And you're a member of the Zip Honor Society.
I was back in the day, yes.
And the defendant is a member of the Zip Honor Society.
Yes, and he has been since, I believe, 2011.
Objection, Your Honor. I'd request that the opposing counsel allow me to see my witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, in the defendant's own words, you're a mentor to Grayson Zane.
Well, I was a professor at the Utopia University, but Grayson and I personally had, a teacher-student relationship. It was a very professional relationship.
You've even gone so far as co-authored a research paper with the defendant.
Well, that's the thing. I sort of just slapped my name on it. It was really Grayson that was doing most of the work on that paper.
Dr. Grody, yes or no, did you co-author a report with the defendant?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
And you've even spoken for hours on the phone with the defendant about your overseas work.
Yes, I have. But again, our relationship is still very, very much teacher-student, very professional.
And isn't it true that zippers stick together?
That is the motto, as far as I'm aware, yes.
Now, you've claimed that pheromones could not have played a part in today's case.
I don't believe they could have, no, due to the time allotted for the termites on the gate being completely insufficient with the damage that was seen on the gate when it collapsed.
Objection, Your Honor. I'd once again ask for opposing counsel to allow me to see my witness. Thank you.
However, you are aware of the defendant's lab notes.
I am, yes, I'm familiar with those.
Your Honor, may I retrieve Exhibit 10 from the bench? The lab notes. Thank you. May I approach the witness? Now,
Your Honor, once again, I'd like to request opposing counsel allow me to see my witness.
forgive me, Your Honor. Can you please look at the notes taken on September 8th, 2014?
Let's see, September 8th.
On the back.
All right, here we go. Do you want me to read?
No,
you want me
I'll
to
read it. You
comments?
can listen silently, please.
Okay.
Again, I'm seeing some results. There seems to be a greater proportion of winged versus non-winged reproductive species forming. Nice. Way to go, me. On September 11, 2014, the defendant wrote 2% increase in workers, 1.8% increase in winged.
Objection, this is a sidebar comment. There is no question anywhere in this statement.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Yes.
I was asking the question next.
Overruled.
So, Dr. Grody, did the defendant have some success in synthesizing a pheromone?
I believe that he could have had some success, but I believe it was completely insufficient to say that an undergrad student could have created this revolutionary pheromone that would trap these specific termites to that gate.
Dr. Grody, yes or no? Did the defendant have some success in synthesizing this pheromone?
I believe he had limited success, yes.
Now, you've also claimed that dormancy could have played a part in today's case. Is that right?
Yes.
However, you'd agree with me that the longest scientifically recorded period of dormancy is 19 years of the yucca moth.
I would agree with you, but that's the thing about science is like entomology. You never know what you're going to expect, and it's always surprising us.
And you said it yourself, you'd like to stick to the real facts.
Yes.
However, there aren't any scientific peer-reviewed studies that support dormancy lasting since the presidency of Andrew Johnson, say, the late 1800s.
No, there are no documented dormancies. However, again, that's the thing about science. It's always surprising you, and you never know what you're going to expect.
So you stand here before this jury today, giving a theory that has no direct scientific backing.
I'm giving a theory based on my 50 years of expertise in this field, and I can confidently say that those termites were most likely dormant inside of the payphone.
Dr. Grody, yes or no? You're presenting a theory of dormancy that has zero scientific backing.
It has no recorded scientific backing, and it is a theory, but it is the one that I believe the strongest in, and I believe it is the one that is the most relevant in this case today.
So, yes, it lacks scientific
Objection,
backing.
asked and answered.
Overruled.
Dr. Grody, your theory that supports the defense lacks scientific backing.
It lacks recorded scientific backing.
Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Anything else? You may step back.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Anything further?
The defense rests, Your Honor.
That concludes the evidence in this case. Again, it's typical to take a short break before closings. Let's take about 5 minutes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Please be seated. It's my understanding that the jury has its instructions. I will move on to closing arguments, first from the defense.
Your Honor, I think the prosecution goes first.
Okay, that's different than what we do in Kentucky.
May I reserve whatever time I have remaining for rebuttal, Your Honor?
Sure.
May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. Desperate acts lead to deadly consequences. The defendant's desperate acts in today's case certainly led to a dire consequence. It's dark outside. It's the night of September 15th. Harper Finch, a promising freshman at Utopia University, climbs to the top of the school's Pei-Fong arch to complete a hazing exercise. Once on top, the wooden structure snaps, and Miss Finch falls headfirst, 25 feet to her death. But as we learned here today, the story doesn't begin there. No, this story begins back in September of 2014 when the defendant learned what the victim knew about him. The victim threatened to expose a grading scandal orchestrated by the defendant. So, the defendant was desperate to silence Miss Finch, the victim. Both Dr. McCabe and Avery Coltash testified here today that the defendant was in fact desperate and angry. So the defendant made a plan. This plan manifested itself in the form of deadly hazing. The discovery of the grading scandal began a dark journey for both the defendant and the victim. Miss Finch became the subject of multiple attacks in the form of bedbugs, a nearly fatal Crazy Cream 5K, and ultimately the death of Miss Finch on the payphone. The defendant knew that he had been caught, but refused to go down without a fight. So the defendant had the motive, but did he have the opportunity? Did the defendant have access to the murder weapon in today's case? Did the defendant have access to the termites? Well, the answer is yes. The defendant had access to the lab in which this special species of non-native termites was kept. The defendant was doing the exact experiments with the exact same type of termites at the exact same time the murder occurred. This is not a coincidence. So what do we have to prove? Well, as the prosecution, we hold the burden of proof in today's case. We had to prove to you today, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant placed the termites on the payphone and ordered the victim to climb it. We have proven both of these elements to you today beyond a reasonable doubt. Members of the jury, today, nobody really wins. Miss Finch's family lost their daughter, and Utopia University lost a dedicated student. But despite these unfortunate realities, we must remember the law and what we're obligated to do here today. The defendant's desperate acts led to a deadly consequence. The defendant must be held accountable for his actions. And that is why you must find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree, as it is the only verdict that the facts compel, the law requires, and justice demands. Thank you.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. May it please the court, opposing counsel, members of the jury. In his opening statement, my colleague, Mr. Dexter, told you that today you would hear hoofbeats. And we have heard a lot of hoofbeats as he predicted. But I hope you don't fall for the prosecution's trick and believe you heard a zebra. Remember the facts in today's case and what the prosecution wants you to believe. The prosecution expects you to believe that Grayson Zane was able to be a pioneer in the field of pheromones, despite being admittedly bad at chemistry. The prosecution expects you to believe that Grayson Zane was a cold-blooded killer, despite the fact that you heard multiple witnesses testify that they never saw malice or ill will from him. Members of the jury, believe the truth. The truth is, you heard a horse. The most common sense answer to today's question. To show to you that Grayson Zane was not responsible for this horrible tragedy, we called 3 witnesses. First, you heard from Grayson Zane himself. Grayson Zane told you about a grading scandal he was dragged into when he arrived at Utopia University. He never wanted to be a part of this grading scandal, but was forced to by older, more experienced ZIP members. He told you he did his best to make pledging with ZIP an enjoyable experience. He also told you that despite what you heard from some of the prosecution's witnesses, that he had no reason to kill Harper Finch. You then heard from Logan Kaufman, who was a pledge in ZIP. She witnessed firsthand Harper's competitive spirit and gave us several examples of it. She told you about Harper's strong contempt for ZIP leadership and the innumerable times that she protested Grayson Zane's leadership as president of the Honor Society. And then we heard about Harper's final moments. Harper was warned not to climb the payphone and to not take any unnecessary risk by Logan Kaufman, Grayson Zane, and the prosecution's own witness, Avery Coltash. And finally, you heard from Dr. Shelby Grody, a forensic entomologist with over 50 years of experience. Dr. Grody concluded that the only reasonable explanation for the collapse of the payphone, in addition to its age, was that the termites that caused the damage had been living there since the gate was erected. The extremely cold weather conditions in the winters of 2013 and 14 caused the gate to become damaged enough that the termites were allowed to come out of hibernation. And once they came out of hibernation, they did what they do best: eat. Dr. Grody also concluded that the damage done by the termites would be completely inconsistent with the termites only being there for 1 week, making it impossible for Grayson Zane to have planted them there. And what have you gotten from the state? A plea of desperation to convict an innocent man. They brought you an obscure forensic entomologist with an unfound theory about a pheromone. The prosecution expects you to believe that an undergraduate was able to do something no expert has ever successfully done before. They also brought you a close friend of Harper's, who only stoked Harper's competitive spirit, and who's had it out since Grayson from the beginning. And they brought you a disgraced professor, whose misconduct dropped her from a professor at a major university to an employee at a Wallywood Garden Center. And who did they contribute this to? None other than Grayson Zane. 2 people biased against Grayson from the beginning, and 1 being paid to testify here today. That is what the prosecution has based their case off of. As the defense, we do not have the burden of proof in today's case. The state has all the responsibility here today, and it is a responsibility they have failed to fulfill. They had to prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that Grayson Zane was responsible for this horrible tragedy. If you have a single reasonable doubt in your mind, you must find Grayson Zane not guilty. If you don't believe an undergraduate could create a revolutionary pheromone, you must find Grayson Zane not guilty. But if you do believe that a 146-year-old gate could collapse on its own, you must find Grayson Zane not guilty. The state has utterly failed to prove that Grayson Zane killed Harper Finch. After all, it's hard to prove what simply isn't true. It's hard to convince you that they heard a zebra running through the woods of Utopia. Find on the side of truth and common sense. Find Grayson Zane not guilty. Thank you.
Rebuttal, Your Honor? If you're not careful, you'll be on my list. Watch where you step when you follow my lead. You didn't die, so you passed. This time. Defense counsel just got up here and talked a lot about what they think we don't know. But this, members of the jury, is what we do know, in the defendant's own words. Every single defense witness is a zip. And remember that zippers stick together. You heard Dr. Shelby Grody admit that he has no scientific backing of his theory. Members of the jury, this case is not about zebras or horses. It is about investigating, acquiring evidence, and determining, not assuming, who is responsible for the murder of Miss Finch. Members of the jury, Grayson Zane is responsible and must be held accountable for his actions. Find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Thank you.
That concludes the trial. Next is grading, correct?
Hello.
Hello.
You guys got seated more quickly than I have ever seen. First of all, congratulations on being in this round. You guys faced tough competition to get to this point. At regionals, at state, you guys should be proud of yourselves regardless of today's outcome. I wanted to especially thank Judge Bartlett for letting us take over his courtroom. We tapped into the audio, we set up cameras, and we occupied his entire courtroom on a Sunday morning. Not to mention that he has so generously offered to be here to preside over this trial. We also want to thank TVNK, that's who's been filming, Brian Costello, Jason Dudas, and Victor Mattis. Thank you guys so much for volunteering your time again on a Sunday morning. As you guys know, we have had full run of this courthouse for the entire weekend. That is especially thanks to Chief Judge Summy and all of the judges that have allowed us to use their courtrooms. Stephanie Dietz did a great job helping us get that set up, get the TVNK set up. Courthouse personnel, I'm sure you guys saw the clerk's office, staff all throughout the weekend. They've been fantastic. Security has been fantastic. The custodial group has had a task to clean up after this many high school students and teens. And the AOC has worked to make sure that we can get this recording done and things like that. So thank you to everyone that has made this happen, coaches, parents, especially thanks to you, students. Make sure you acknowledge the work that your parents and that your coaches and everyone in your lives have done to get you to this point. For the awards. Unlike the rounds leading up to this, there is one Best Attorney Award and one Best Witness Award. So the jury was asked to circle one attorney between the two rosters and 1 witness between the two rosters. The best attorney received 5 of those ranks, and that is Lauren Hudson. The best witness received 3 of those ranks. That is Carson Brown with Matt. All right. Whichever team I announce will give you the results for both teams, obviously. This was a split round. 6 ballots went to the winning team. This team will get to go to nationals. I'll be announcing the champion. So for that team, please stick around. We'll sort out what we need to do there. The team that got second place, there is a plaque as well. Congratulations. With 6 ballots, the prosecution, Dixie Heights.